Phil, I don't know what to do with the incredible responsibility attached to the power of such incredible prognostication that I'm worried that I may be tempted to use my powers for evil instead of good, because being able to tell the future, playing the lotto, there we go. There's one way that I could abuse this power, that I predicted the winless streak would end, and that it would end due to a result that would be surprising to some.
Surprise me.
Frankly, oh, Phil, something else, something is coming. I can feel it. I feel it just beyond the veil. It comes to us.
Is this a new player?
No, it is not the shape of a new player.
Is it Uzuni getting in form?
Phil, I also do not see Uzuni getting in form, but yeah, that would be nice, actually. And who knows, maybe being on the bench for his national team would have done something. But no, Phil, I don't see that clearly yet, not through my mind's third eye.
What are you seeing? What's the vision? Is the
fog
lifting?
I see a towering presence, a Yeti.
A Yeti
that comes closer and closer at the cost of $60, and it will imminently, finally, as foretold before the season began, it will finally be available at Q2 Stadium this weekend alongside slightly increased season ticket prices. Don't control the visions, Phil. These are just the visions.
Emergency podcast. They did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, oh yeah, shut up, oh yeah, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Yeah, hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast, where we talk about all the Austin FC emergencies. And what is this about a $60 Yeti? What is it? Is it magic? Does it magically fill itself with non-alcoholic drinks every time you take it to Q2 Stadium?
Well, this is something that we learned about the Yeti store event, where Andy and the head of marketing for Yeti, some of the players were there. They got some fancy new backpacks, which I don't think are yet on sale to the general public, but I am jealous of those backpacks because I love a good backpack with compartments and so on. But Andy mentioned that there would be this refillable Yeti that would be good for non-alcoholic beverages throughout the whole season. And it's making its debut halfway into the season. But $60, if you look at stadium pricing, sure, there's soda, but there's also iced tea. What I know that somebody I know is going to buy this. The immediate thing, and people from the club listen
to
this.
And how big is it?
Big. It's a big one. That's me doing the real good reportage. It's one of the taller tumbler types. It's
probably familiar.
I want to say it's the 26 ounce, just eyeballing it.
Yeah, it's a good amount.
People from the club listen to this, and I might be messing things up for a fellow cold brew enthusiast. I know that somebody I know is going to buy this thing. I just want somebody to buy this thing and take it to one of the stands that serves cold brew and go, I would like my free refill, please, and get 26 ounces of cold brew that they then decant out to friends. And honestly, look, if you think about it, you do that for a couple of games with a group of, 6 people, pays for itself. But it has a specific custom engraving noting the 2025 season. The idea is that this will be a recurring, ongoing thing that they're going to do season after season, that, all they have to do to check it is look at the engraving on it. And presumably, like taking a growler to a brewery, they rinse it out, clean it, and then refill it with your beverage of choice.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much would it be to buy a Yeti that you could fill with alcoholic drinks and take that up to the SciPlay Sports Bar and get an electric jellyfish?
That's layers upon layers, Phil. Layers upon layers. But yeah, this news came this week just in advance of season ticket renewal prices. People are reporting that supporter section tickets are up about 3%, or something like under $20 year over year. That's the thing, is you got to import all those tickets from overseas. They're precision engineered in a very specific place that has angered a very specific political person. Yeah, things are nuts, Phil. We have an outline, but you mentioned the happenings of the world. Any plans that I had to go to Club World Cup games have been scratched, because not only will ICE and DHS be providing security, but they'll actively be checking papers at the gates for Club World Cup games. And I hope that doesn't come to MLS. I hope that stays in FIFA land because it
Right.
sure does discourage me from wanting to go see soccer in my own country.
Yeah, it's getting wild.
Yeah, crazy times, crazy things happening. LAFC their fan base made a very forthright demonstration of opposition to the ICE raids happening across the country. And other fan bases, I think, especially with the events of the last couple weeks as we record this, I think one can expect as much demonstration as people can get around the network censors, as it were, not just in Austin, but across the league, because this is something
Yeah.
that, regardless of what specifically bent political commentary may have you believe, is very much at the forefront of a lot of people's minds that makes it very difficult to do something like disconnect and just
Right.
enjoy some soccer. As we know, sports isn't political. Politics has no place in sports. But we happen to love football, the most political of all the political sports,
Yep.
in which cities become sentient, countries become giants, directly reflecting the real world.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So how do we have
Let's,
fun, Phil? Phil,
I don't know.
please, there's some sort of
Talk
fun
about a
for me.
2-0 win. We talk
Okay.
about a 2-0 win.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm on board. Thank you, Phil. You've taken me out of
Okay.
my doldrums. You've relieved my depression. A 2-0 win.
With the opponent scoring 0, getting anywhere from like 2.1 to 3.7 XG. I don't know where that discrepancy came from necessarily.
This was a topic of contention between the Stats MLS tabulated and, for example, what ASA put together and what various armchair statisticians put forth. I am but a babe in the woods when it comes to stat talk. So please illuminate me.
It's got to do with how the chances in front of goal got calculated. So I don't know necessarily how ASA, for example, or FOTMOB differs from MLS. They usually are roughly the same because they're, again, XG calculations has to do with distance from goal, but it also has to do with whether it's an open shot or whether you're defended. It can even be whether it's your dominant foot or your less dominant foot. A lot of math goes into it, but yeah, it was a wide discrepancy. And then I asked Nico about it because I thought that it was actually pretty remarkable that the defense did what they did, given even with the less impressive, quote unquote, XG values that we had, it still looked like Austin weathered a lot of chances, and that's certainly what the eye test told us. And still a clean sheet, a 2-0 win. They hadn't had a 2-0 win before that in 287 days, which is a lot of days. That got us, of course, the post-match locker room photo, which I know a lot of podcasts have talked about. I just want to mention Bucharest Winnie the Poohing next to Owen, who's holding up shorts rather than wearing shorts. Highlight of the photo, but there are layers upon layers. It is a David Foster Wallace novel, or it's a Gabriel Garcia Marquez novel. Just layers upon layers, depending on which character's perspective you take.
Guys in the background, are they being bashful? Are they shy? What is causing some of those portraits within a face that we have to pore over and speculate on? There really just is so much storytelling in that shot, which, regardless of what part of the fan base or what way you fan, so much to dig into and speculate on and fan fiction in your own head about.
Right. John Gallagher, I'm flexing again.
Yeah.
That's how his chapter starts.
Yep.
I find myself flexing again. Wearing an armband for reasons that hopefully get revealed in that chapter. I don't know what that armband was. I don't know what he was doing.
Who knows?
So 2-0. Any reactions from that game? Our friends in podcast world have broken that down. You had correctly predicted that it was going to be a win, that we weren't going to extend into a 9-game winless streak, which would have been a record. I am glad that that is the way it turned out, as somebody who likes happy Austin FC fans reading our stuff and listening to our podcast, but at the same time wondering about carrying that momentum into the Red Bulls game, which we are going to talk about momentarily, why they might be more of a difficult opponent than maybe some people are making them out. But what does that tell us that Austin can go into Commerce City and get the win, other than Austin can go into Commerce City and get a win?
Talking about the win at the Dick, as others have coined it, is something that there are layers to this. There is depth to what happened there. We got a little bit of reflection on this from Nico in the post-game presser when he, as he told you, did not want to talk about stats, but he did want to talk about ideas and emotions and passion. And he said that in the pre-game meeting that they had with the players, that there was just a feeling of there being something in the air. There was some different level of focus, this sort of hyper focus, locked in,
Mhm.
ready to rock, just some different kind of something in the air. And it's almost like we've talked about that special air at Q2 that has created some of those special moments at home. I think what happened is that somebody creatively bottled said air, found it in the back of a closet, brought it with them to Colorado, and opened that bottle up in a very small, compact, airtight room of the players. They got a big whiff of it. And that's the only way that I can reason out whatever it was that really brought them more alive. But Nico said that in the post meeting with the players, meeting with his coaching staff, they discussed it about how they didn't know what it was. They didn't know what caused it. It was just something. They're manufactured pull quotes and carefully crafted marketing statements and that kind of thing. It didn't strike me as that. It is something that to me was a recounting of this is literally what he witnessed. He can't explain it any better than the rest of us do. But going into it, the prediction that I had was very much founded in as tired as people have been of getting the same kind of, I've put it to you as dietary fiber. It's good for you.
Yeah.
It's very good for you. It's nutritious. It's not fun to somebody. Raisin bran or frosted mini wheats, the dietary fiber part of that is fun for some people, I guess, sure. But it's not the, oh boy, I'm going for this. You're looking for the sugar. You're looking for the raisins. You want that instant satisfaction bit of things. You're not thinking about what your digestive tract is doing. But that solid base of things, I don't know why I went down the path of a digestion metaphor. Usually I stick with cooking, but hey, this is where we are.
Right.
To me, this was about that really solid relationship between the players and the coaching staff. There are so many different ways to lose a locker room that keeping things knit together, even in times of adversity, as they have for this half season, ups and downs, different people finding their form, different people finding their rhythm with their fellow players, finding it in training, but not on the field. To me, it felt like this was the culmination of those put up or shut up moments, the win against El Paso, getting their heads right. This was when they, as a unit, as a group, finally locked in. Could things have still been cleaner? Could things have still gone better? Could it have been 4-0? Sure. But this is a step on the progression chart for me that gets them to playing a game with the setup of what that game was and it being 4-0 instead of 2-0 in hopefully a few weeks' time. Hopefully they do not have too much time off, because that can have just as negative effect as not having enough of a break, enough time to rest, enough time to recuperate. I feel like the ideal scenario is definitely still within reach, which is at minimum 7 points out of June. If not, 9 could be achievable. Coming off of the high of what the momentum from that Rapids game did for them in proving those who doubted them wrong, including themselves, is something that I feel like I think hope for a draw. We might be looking to see something special happening against the New Jersey area Metro Stars.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think that is the most difficult of the 3 opponents that they have this month. Normally, Seattle is difficult, but they have 3 very tough Club World Cup games that are happening. They are playing the Champions League champions. They are playing Atletico Madrid. They're playing Botafogo. These are really tough games, and I don't think they're going to get out of group. And I think that those players are probably going to be pretty tired. And as you know, from the shirts that they were wearing, they are not necessarily happy about the financial arrangements that are happening for players in the Club World Cup. They are protesting those actively. So I don't necessarily feel like it's going to be a bot in Seattle. And I feel like by the time, if they do get bounced out of the group match, I don't think they're really going to be in much of a mood to play soccer somehow.
Yeah, it feels to me like, especially looking at what they're going into the Club World Cup form has looked like, I don't know, man. Like having that loss against Vancouver, that's not a good way to head into a giant global competition.
Right. And wait a minute, didn't Nico say, and didn't a lot of people say that Vancouver battling what turned out to be E. coli? That came out.
Yeah.
Like it was E. coli. Yeah. And one of the players that scored was most affected by that. And in a press conference after the game, he said, well, I had spent a lot of time in the bathroom. That was his assessment of where he was at. Seattle was supposed to theoretically walk all over Vancouver based on the status of the players, where they were at. And as it turns out, most of the Vancouver starters recovered. They were plugged in there. And then lo and behold, they won 3-0, proving that Vancouver's a really good team this year.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle is not going, again, if that was supposed to be a gimme match and then they didn't, not only did they not win that game, they did not score. They got shut out 3-0. And two other players got red cards. I don't really think that their mentality going into the Club World Cup is where it should be. And I think that that hangover might extend over to the game that Austin plays, which I think now, again, I don't see that getting delayed. I don't see Seattle getting out of that group. So I do think that that happens. LAFC might be a different matter. That game might get postponed depending on how far they go. And that is July 5th. That's the next one. So again, yeah, maybe more breaks than you would want in that. But this does seem the time that if you're going to catch Seattle at any time this season in Seattle, really good time to do that.
Well, Phil, activating my powers of prognostication and foreknowledge, you have previously said if there is any time to catch blank, Vancouver, you've mentioned this about other teams.
It doesn't always work out.
I'm worried you might have cursed them. Oh, no. Not the old Phil West curse of, well, this is how you'd want to catch them.
Well, yeah, we just mocked people for saying, oh, this is a really great time to catch Vancouver. So maybe we should be careful. MLS is weird. Yeah, things can happen. But that said, I do think that, yeah, it's much better to catch Seattle at this point of the season than September, when theoretically they might be firing on all cylinders as they typically do in the fall most seasons. We shall see.
I tell you what, I like having entertaining stuff to watch, and I feel like I'm not hoping that I will see that. I'm expecting that I will see that. That's the biggest difference in terms of the way that I feel right now. We'll get to previewing the match to come in a minute, but I don't know. I feel like one game really can make a solid difference, but they've got to keep it up. There cannot be a regression, even though Red Bull is expected to be the toughest of the three opponents this month. That's the test that they've got to pass with flying colors in the first 15 minutes of the match.
Yeah. Okay. And here are some things that worry me. I'm going to come out with this probably by the time you are listening to this, depending on how the content happens here on Saturday morning with the editing and the posting of stuff. But I checked in with Mark Fishkin, who does the Seeing Red podcast. He is a long time Red Bulls person back from MetroStars days. He goes way, 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 way back with the team. And some of the things that I asked about, Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting, their new striker, has been around the block. He is older. He's also excelled in Europe. He has 10 goals this season. They did not expect him to play an average of 83 minutes per appearance. They thought far less. He's saying they could be the first 20 goal scorer that the Red Bulls have had since Bradley Wright Phillips of Apple TV fame now. 4 of those are from PKs, but again, that is the mark of a good striker as well, that you get to the spot and then you convert those, and then not the kind of energy drink soccer style that we have seen in the past. A lot more control than we've seen before, but again, they can still press. And then also, yeah, and just an answer to something else, he just dropped casually. They have the best MLS home form right now. It's 7-1-1. Of course, they are going to be on the road. They're going to be in Q2 Stadium, and their road record is much different. It is comparable to what Seattle and LA are doing. LAFC, that is, right? So LA Galaxy are doing terrible everywhere. But Seattle and LAFC are teams that are doing really well at home and really poorly away, hopefully with June 28th being the exception in Seattle's case. Yeah, but yeah, they do worry me a little bit. Again, people think of them maybe as kind of this mediocre team. They limped into the playoffs last year, but as you'll recall, they did move through the East and they did end up in MLS Cup. That did not go well for them that day, but just that they got there, I think, was pretty remarkable. They've now made the playoffs 15 years in a row, which is the longest current active playoff streak in American sports.
There's streaks and there's breaking streaks. There's having form and there's breaking from that form, and we'll see how that goes. It would be, you mentioned LAFC, and that makes me think of, this is Cherundolo's farewell season. What an ignominious farewell season it could be if they keep sliding. If we're looking at a situation where coming out of the Club World Cup, they go real hard to try to get out of that group and narrowly miss getting out of that group, that's a pretty ideal way for Austin to play them at home 4th of July weekend with some proper fireworks on the field. one could expect. That could be part of the propulsive narrative of where Austin's season goes, which, hey,
Yep.
Austin benefiting at the expense of others, having a 1-2 punch of Seattle back-to-back with LAFC, that'd be great. But also, you never know when teams turn things around all of a sudden. Sometimes if they're depleted and they play the teenagers, there are so many variables at play that
Well, you got to bring up old stuff.
it does feel like tempting fate. That's the thing that I keep coming back to, is it just feels like tempting fate.
Yeah. You know, I do have this poster in my house because, I mean, as you all know, I come from Seattle. I now live in Austin, obviously. I have the Five Teenagers game poster in my house, but it's actually,
Wow.
it's a Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix poster that Los Verdes did. It's really cool. It is in a place of honor, which is right over our bar.
So lots of
boy.
fireworks to be seen across MLS fields in the coming weeks, but I think the state of things in the country is going to make this a different kind of season to remember when it comes to the activity and activism of fan bases. Not just because of things like the Brigada de Oro thing that we talked about a few weeks ago, not just what's happened here recently, but this is just a few months into everything that's going on. So as much as people like to divorce what happens off the field and what happens on the field, it is stuff that will probably spill over into interactions and co-signing of things by players, and certain players crossing certain lines in terms of taking stands on different things and others not. We've already seen a fair number of Austin players come out in support of action protesting this sort of stuff. They're not just worried about the bag they get from tournaments like Club World Cup. They're already speaking out, and they are leveraging the fact that they are a collectively bargained workforce. And those who want to be known for their political stances, they're taking those political stances.
The recent years have been quieter than 2020, 2021. You had, of course, Black Lives Matter. You had the protests that were going on at the MLS's back tournament that the players did. You had the whole Iron Front controversy that was happening. You had Ali Bedoya yelling end gun violence now into a field mic after scoring a goal in a game. It's not that MLS has not been divorced from political statements from players as well as fans, but it doesn't seem like it's really happened in a few years. So that is one thing I'm wondering. Yeah, is this the year where that is going to maybe make a little bit more of a comeback? And like you were mentioning, LAFC did something, stands to reason. There are definitely things that are happening in their town, but just again, wondering, is there going to be more of that kind of action, more of that kind of activity? And again, I don't know necessarily that All-Star Game is a huge platform, but I'm wondering just what might be in store here when that comes. That's going to be, I think, a really interesting game. We don't know the status of Messi. We know that Messi is going to be a All-Star, but we don't know if he is going to be in the All-Star game as things might transpire. But I do imagine that if Messi does come here, there's going to be a lot of attention on Austin just because of that. He still has that kind of pull as a global superstar.
On that exact topic, there has been that speculation of, will he decide to or not? I would be, look, it's on Don Garber and MLS's lawyers if they did not negotiate a clause in his contract guaranteeing he would appear in an all-star game where he selected, but he would have to be healthy and not injured. And he was injured last year, which is why he didn't play. And I think they've been very careful to not include him in any of the promotional materials this year because fool me once, fool me twice, right? I feel like they definitely want him on that roster. 100,000% want him on that roster, and they've got to be contractually leveraged to be able to compel him to play, whether he is in love with the concept or not. He sure better love all of those fringe benefits that he got as part of this deal, which he took over taking the Saudi money, for example. To me, it's the kind of thing that they know that there are players that definitely sell tickets, and Messi is the biggest of the big. You're dead right that if Messi figures in the All-Star match, as we assume he will, that does change the calculus of just how locked down the league front office, the local front office are going to be about trying to control the way that MLS presents itself. There are those kinds of very valid concerns to be had about what could transpire in the interest of trying to protect the league. And that's not me absolving moves that the MLS or Austin front offices might take in these regards, but I think that context bears recognizing. Do you look at it as just trying to reputationally protect the bag. I feel like some of the nuance that might get lost is that there are concerns about green card holding players. And
Yeah.
all you have to do is cross the guy in the Oval Office the wrong way.
Mhm.
And he's talking
Right.
about actively deporting people and changing rules about
Yeah.
things.
I know that his messaging has been very careful to talk about players being protected. I know that they've been sending out messages about if you're going to the World Cup, you're fine as long as you are here just for the games and then leave after the tournament's over.
Yeah.
Again, we'll see where things go. It's all very fluid at this point right now. But to the Messi point about just the league and its optics, again, the league does not like that kind of political expression. And it is, if Messi plays, it is going to be his first All-Star game, and it is going to be a big deal. And again, the MLS versus Liga MX format, I don't know necessarily that that is something that people are as dialed in on as the league thought they should be. I think it's good. I like it. I don't know that that's necessarily compelling to the general public, but I do think that Messi's presence in this game will make people curious. People still search him. People still gravitate towards him when he's playing, and to see him on that kind of level with the best players that North American domestic leagues can muster will be interesting to see how he does in that. Because again, he's there, that's been a weird team this year, but he's still doing some pretty fantastic individual things. So it will be nice to see him play. But again, it's very early in all that's going on with the protests and whatnot. But I wonder how this ramps up, where this goes to. As we are recording this, we are a day away from some nationwide protests and also a big military parade in DC. I imagine that if there is rhetoric and opportunities for things to get a little more intense, then this weekend might be a jumping off point for it. So again,
Yeah.
I have a lot of trepidation about where this is all going.
You noted it rightly. The military parade, which is at a gigantic cost, and that there are expected protests at, and there are expected protests across the country. I have it very reliably that the league did get a reprimand from the White House about the anti-ICE protests at LAFC.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
So one should anticipate that things are not going to go quietly, especially in cities with activist fan bases like Austin's. And it's, of all the things that are difficult to predict, I can't lay a bet on what we can expect other than that people are not interested in shutting up and staying quiet. We could see mass walkout protests, refusal of attendance to games. It could be that people could go so far as to buy out tickets to that All-Star game and then not use them and
Right.
force MLS to televise an empty stadium. Less likely that that happens if Messi's playing, because there are people who do not care about principles as much as they do trying to pitch invade and get a selfie with Messi.
But are
But
there
yeah,
road banners? Are there,
I mean,
certain
you
planes flying over?
think about how things were 5 years ago, and think about banners, think about signs, think about all the stuff that people do when there is something big and active to protest. Everybody should expect that people are going to do that. The question is how the response goes and how people are treated, and then how people react in kind to that treatment. I think that it is highly unadvisable for local front offices to set off on a confrontational footing with supporters who they're policing at the behest of the league, because at the end of the day, their relationships are with those fans coming to their stadiums, buying their $60 refillable mugs, buying their merch, buying their tickets, and investing for the future, for when these storms pass. When, let's say, if those storms pass, it's good business to make sure that you are de-escalating rather than further escalating things, because you are keeping that war at home, even if it's MLS's fault. That's really my big concern going into this weekend, is that we could see all-out war between people who are just following orders, and that's never been the best reason for anything.
The other thing too, thinking about the league, is they do front office does have relationships with the fans that they have to preserve, but it's a single entity league. They also have
Yep.
responsibility to the league and its front office. And again, trying to thread that needle. I remember when all the Iron Front stuff was happening and talking to Mark Abbott about it, and who was the number two for MLS under Garber, who had been the first employee of the league. And while there is a certain appetite for political expression that I think they understand, I think that they also have always been concerned about optics. For example, the P word chant and like the YSA kind of English alternative that's happened. I know that they've had a lot of sensitivity around that, theoretically, just fans expressing themselves. But in terms of the image that that brings to the league and how that might have the potential to turn people off, and that's a different thing, obviously, than political expression. But I think just the kind of sensitivity to anything that is happening in the stands that is not cookie cutter chanting and flags of the team's colors and all that sort of stuff. It's when you open your stadium doors to everybody, you're opening your stadium doors to everybody. And it's really hard to control what happens in there. And I know that definitely front offices, they try to mitigate those sorts of things. They try to present themselves a certain way. But again, you have a lot of eyeballs on something and the opportunity for expression. Who knows? I'm curious to see how this all transpires as the season continues.
Keeping it local and thinking about the relationship between Austin fans and the front office and security managing that stadium, there was an incident a few weeks ago where things went escalating rather than de-escalating. And
yeah,
honestly, I'm glad that happened then rather than something like that not being reconsidered, understanding that some de-escalation training was put in place. There was direct outreach to the person involved, that kind of thing. I am glad that there was some reckoning with that before the place that we find ourselves in history right now. Not to say that I want bad things to happen, but I would hope that if something like that happens this weekend, it doesn't happen in Austin. As much as people do need to follow the orders, being a single entity league, to your point, that look, there are only so many places that so many people can be and so many things that those people can police at one time. And boy, you can do your darndest and do your very best. And if it's a matter of playing to the sensitivities of what the people in power are paying most attention to, my hope is that people can express themselves and be their best activist selves and be recognized in ways that limits the harm that is done to people. The last thing I want to just kind of leave out there is if you get too obsessed with, you can't make people upset, you can't say things that people don't like, then you give in to fascist impulses to just trample everything and suppress speech. So I don't know that people protesting more nicely or being more polite or something like that in saying that they do not like the direction of the country or they do not like major political moves being made, I believe that that does much more harm than prevent harm, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's hard. We try to just be soccer focused, but it's just such a big, it's just such a just uncertain year. There's just so much shifting ground right now that it's just really hard to know how to be.
It's a very difficult situation that everybody finds themselves in. The last week has been, okay, what next? Okay, what now? And we're going to see a version of the what next as these games kick off this weekend. There's literally no magical powers that will allow us to properly prognosticate what's going to happen where and how.
Not even yours.
No, it's beyond my ken. Shall we talk about bonus games, Phil? Shall we talk about the actual game of the weekend?
Yeah, we can do that. I just wanted to do one more lighter kind of all-star speculation. We had floated the idea of Stuver and possibly Heinz Eyck as Austin FC candidates because, again, we have not had a lot of offensive firepower this year. And usually when you are selecting attackers, when you're selecting forwards and midfielders and wingers, you are doing that based on what they are doing on the field and the kind of stats that they are putting up. And I noticed that Brandon Vasquez was used in some all-star graphics to illustrate the team and to talk about the matchup. I do not suspect that Brandon Vasquez is going to be part of that team given his 4 goals, but there are 40 players above him in terms of 5 goals or more. I think that was the threshold as of last week when we were doing the math on it. Vasquez, certainly a good striker, certainly a capable striker, but in terms of all the people that you could select from, I don't think he's necessarily going to be that until or unless he goes on some sort of tear this week. But at the same time, thinking about just where the team is going to be, the fact that Nico Estevez gets to select 12 players. I do, again, because the way that the voting is going right now, Stuver is not among the top 5 goalkeepers, so it doesn't look like he's going to get voted in as one.
It's often
but
that coaches have picked their goalkeeper.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, Wayne Rooney picked Tyler Miller. So certainly if that happens, like we've talked about, Brad Stuver Lifetime Achievement Award. I know, that's a given. That's granted. That's something that I've been saying all season. It's also something I said last season. I was kind of hoping that would happen, but now his coach has control over it. So yeah, exactly. Heidzijk, I could see, especially if they don't have another kind of 5-1 disaster like they did with Vancouver, then they're still going to be one of the league's best defenses based on just goals against, and Heidzijk has been pretty central to what their defense has been doing, and I think has been pretty stable most of the season. There have been some exceptions here and there, but that is the life of a center back. I just don't see anybody else necessarily that could perhaps cross into this transom. I mean, Bukari would be fun. I still think Bukari and Skills Challenge would make sense because he doesn't have the numbers necessarily, but people need to see his speed. They need to see some of the things that he can do. And I think that that is a place where he could certainly feature and shine. I don't see any other players that are really stepping up to that level. And I think anybody else who gets there, frankly, this season is a bit of a stretch.
I think psychologically, one of the useful things about getting Buka in the skills challenge is make him feared, make him the focus of attention, because he is real good and he is real talented and he is real agile on the ball. That's a psychological gambit to play, is paint a giant target on him and have him continue to duel 3 guys simultaneously now that Austin has figured out how to get guys open so that he can give the ball away to them. That kind of red herring play is something that works in MLS. It's a reputational thing. I did want to say one quick thing you made me think of about Brandon Vasquez. I think part of the reason you see him in the ads is recognizable U.S. men's national team face. There's probably some spreadsheet somewhere that says put Brandon Vasquez in it, and people who pay attention to soccer, they know that guy, even though he's not super likely to play necessarily, but lots of coins to flip on that front. But Phil, there is a very key stat that I think you're downplaying here, which is XS.
Which is?
His X smoke show rating. He's a very attractive guy. And you put that guy in an ad, and people are just like, if guys that handsome are going to be playing in that game, it'll at least be good to look at, right? I feel like that's something that the MLS, that's something that the goals have not stacked up like crazy, but according to people who examine those spreadsheets in that front office, according to them, he is stacked.
I like the logic. We'll see how the all-star selection process goes. You got to keep in mind here that Don Garber does get 2 picks for commissioner's picks. So who knows what is going to happen.
So according to,
you just sent me something.
According to local news, our friends at KView, in previewing the game against New Jersey Red Bulls, they made sure to properly name that team. Where's the lie, though? Where's the lie?
They play in Harrison.
Yeah.
If you've seen Harrison, I went to that. It's now Sports Illustrated Stadium. I went to that stadium in 2015 when Uber was first starting out. I saw Arsenal play the Red Bulls. That was the Thierry Henry game. Got to interview Arsene Wenger. I got to be in the press conference with him, which was a lot of fun. I got to interview Matthew Flamini and Aaron Ramsey and a couple of other players with some weird watch sponsor. Got to hang out with one of my all-time favorite Arsenal players, not for his skills on the field, but because he would often venture from defensive midfield to a striker position, which was very fun and a magnetic personality. My point is that Harrison, New Jersey is a pretty isolated place. Like Uber was not even really servicing it at the time that it was first active, and there wasn't that much around the stadium, and there still isn't much around the stadium. I mean, it is near a path stop, and there are some things around there, but it's not New York City, We're going to put it that way. It is in the New York metro area, but Harrison is definitely not New York City.
It is so definitely not New York City. Like so many things are. Dallas, Texas, also not New York City. Nashville, Tennessee, also not New York City. Harrison, New Jersey, maybe a little bit closer to New York City, but it is very declaratively not New York City.
Yeah. It's also farther from New York City, if you get my drift.
So you brought up the, some would say dreaded, I would say now legendary term bonus game in looking at
Yeah.
what this game means.
Okay, and if you got this in your inboxes initially, go back and look at the website because in between when I originally posted it and now, I actually got Andrew Wiebe to check in from his vacation and give me some thoughts on bonus games and when he coined that in 2022, what the rationale was for that. And yeah, I just looked at that to see, okay, is this still a thing? And it's not really as much of an advantage for Austin as it used to be. In 2022 and 2023, they were getting more than 2 points per game in their Eastern Conference matchups. And they obviously split those between home and away. Again, with 2022, they had 2 games against East teams to open up the season. It was Cincinnati, which at the time everybody thought, oh, it's going to be their 4th straight year of wooden spoondom. They actually turned out to be pretty good. They made the playoffs that year, but they were certainly not good in that first game. Also a game that Brandon Vasquez played in. And then Miami, that was not Lionel Messi's Miami, that was Brek Shea's Miami. So those were, of course, wins, 5-0 and 5-1. That put Austin definitely on the radar in 2022. People thought that they were going to be towards the bottom as from the MLS preseason predictions and the laminating and all that kind of stuff that happened. This year is the first year since 2021 that they have, and again, there's still time, they still have games, but they have not won one of those games against an Eastern Conference team. So I did some math, I did some rundowns, and generally in those years where it's worked, yeah, it really has helped their overall points per game. It has really helped their standing. And again, if you have East teams that are not making the playoffs, that's even better. And there's been kind of luck of the draw with that. Again, this year, you had Cincinnati, who was a playoff game. You had Atlanta, who lost 4-0 to NYCFC last night. They are definitely not a playoff team. They are, unless something magical happens this summer. Again, Garth Lagerwey is their GM, could
Look,
theoretically bring some
remember,
players in, but yeah, they
remember when
look
people
real bad.
wanted Delia at Austin? Remember that?
Yeah, we do not want Rodney Dial at
far,
Austin.
far
Yeah.
away, long ago
Yeah.
time.
Oh God. Yeah. So this year, obviously the Red Bulls, which I think, even though that's at home, I think that that is going to be a really challenging match. After Red Bulls, there's going to be a home match against New England and then a away trip to DC again, maybe a redux of the Puyo game, and then Montreal. And of course, Austin has played Montreal once. That was here in 2023. That was the one goal that Maxi Rudy scored that season against his former team. So that is the history that they have with those teams. And yeah, so I think that there could be some wins coming. I don't know even if they, let's say, draw or lose on tonight as you are hearing this. There are still 3 relatively beatable teams that Austin has a chance to go up against and grab one of those wins. But it might not be necessarily the boost that it was in 2022, where it really did make a difference to get them in the playoffs, in 2023, where it did not salvage what they needed to have salvaged.
So, in terms of the game tonight, as people listen to this, we got breaking news this afternoon before we recorded that Nico Van Ryn got his 3rd out of 4
Yep.
call-ups from the second team. We're seeing the second team project working as intended and designed as they have envisioned it. How likely do you think it is that he hits that 4th one and he gets that supplemental first team slot?
That is definitely a possibility. I would love to see him get a few minutes just to see what he can do if the game is safely in hand. I don't know that it will be. I don't really expect that he will get those minutes. I don't think that he will play, but it would be nice to see one of these second team call-ups get a few minutes if the game state allows for that. Obviously, if they're chasing or if they're trying to hold a lead or they're trying to keep a draw from being a loss, I don't think that bringing in somebody as relatively green as a Van Ryn would be a good idea at that point. But at the same time, it would be nice to just see, okay, they are bringing these players along. What can they do against MLS competition? if what they do against MLS competition is give up an equalizer, that's not something that we want.
The biggest opportunity that Cascante's injury presents is very much seeing in open play how Nico van Rijn folds in with the existing back line. And depending on game state, I would love to see a risk-taking Nico make the call to bring in other Nico, younger Nico, player Nico, and give him those minutes. I would love to see that. And it's not fandom of this particular player, but I just want to see what they get to see on the practice field. That's the horrible, selfish urge that I've got there.
Right.
Is I want to see how well he integrates with Heinzijk, with Svatok. How well does he just drop right in and keep that back line solid? I don't think it's been unreasonable, some of the criticisms that I and you, others have had of Cascante's playing ability. If they are looking at filling a need created by Väisänen leaving, which they could use another center back or they wouldn't be calling this guy up.
And there's a rumor that we're not going to talk about yet.
There's a
'cause
rumor.
I think it's still too early.
Yeah, there's a rumor that we're letting pick up some barnacles as it sails, see where that goes. If they look to move on from Cascante sooner or when the contract expires, how do they fill that slot? Because you don't keep up one of the most solid back lines in MLS without people in that back line, right?
They have used a lot of these short-term call-ups on center backs this year, so they are getting to the end of that. Like anybody who could conceivably be plugged into a game, they're running out of their short-term agreements for those players. Gomez has all four spent at this point, so he can't be activated, and I don't know that he is necessarily somebody who can really fill a supplemental roster spot at this point. I don't know that he's quite there, but Van Rijn intrigues me in a way that Gomez does not necessarily.
There are some interesting players on that second team roster. I can't wait to see Irvin Torres get some first team minutes because that kid's unflappable.
We've been waiting for that.
Yeah.
And Alistair as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he can get some run towards the end of the season, maybe just kind of see where he's
that
at
early season injury really dogged him. And it's unfortunate because man, he came out of the gates racing.
Yeah. But that looked like an injury that could have been season ending.
Yeah.
So just that he was able to fight through that and has played as much as he has, to me, has been that has been a big surprise. Not as big of a surprise as that player not getting a red card for that foul. But
yeah,
because that was real egregious.
I mean, it stands out as one of the signature fouls of the Next Pro season.
It's one of the worst, I think, fouls that I've seen, period, like in all of watching soccer. Like it was pretty brutal.
Yeah. Ugh. I don't want to think about it, Phil. You're making me think about it.
All kinds of fun today. You're mired in fun.
Looking at New Jersey's availability report, they got 3 guys out, 3 guys questionable. Morales, Nialis, and Ngoma, all questionable. Valencia, Mitchell, Bogusz, all out. 1 with international duty, 1 with a hamstring issue. Austin has a pair of those, don't they? And Valencia out with a shoulder injury. How do we think that?
They've got Choupo-Moting. Anytime that you have injuries and you have to jigger your lineup, I do think that is challenging, but I don't see any of the names there being so significant that it's really going to alter what Red Bulls are going to be able to do. So I do expect them to be fairly full strength. And I do, again, it's being in Austin, it's really strange that even though you have this major market, New York is a big market, and New Jersey is part of New York in terms of being a media market and all that. And here we go, just dogging on New Jersey. This is one of the things that we do. We have New York as this major market. It still doesn't seem like it's a major market. It doesn't seem like it's a high profile team. It doesn't seem, the Red Bulls, they're must watch TV, but they are actually a good entertaining team to watch. It's just that the way that they've approached player acquisitions, and they have gotten a little better with Forsberg and Choupo-Moting, but they have been really academy reliant, and it's been a really strange way for a big market like that. Even NYCFC, they had the big splash early on. Pirlo, Lampard, David Villa. Those days, obviously, NYCFC, a little bit different now in terms of their makeup, in terms of who they're signing. Still some good players. Pirlo, Lampard, David Villa. They were great names. It was fun to watch Pirlo on the field, but if you like movement, if you like your players to move, then it's not as good maybe as you would think.
Calling back to my powers of prognostication, Phil. I feel that my clairvoyance has been informed by something that has actually happened in the material world. And that is that Mirto Uzuni has held his baby child for the first time.
Nice.
So
Good.
I have never had a child of my own, but knowing something about the power of a new baby, I think that a different Mirto Uzuni is going to show up. In some way, he will show up different. He will be a different person. You, as a father multiple times over yourself, I think can probably attest there is something transformative about holding your infant child for the first time.
Yes, there is something magical about children. Speaking of, it wouldn't be an Austin FC podcast without Whitecaps Corner. So we bring in Austin-based Whitecaps expert,
Me.
Emmeline West. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. So tell me about the Whitecaps beating Seattle.
They won 3-0.
Uh-huh. And everybody thought they were going to lose because they got really, really sick before when they were playing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final. When we were watching the game, what was Daddy and Lucas and Mommy doing?
Playing.
Playing Scrabble.
Yeah. Well,
Was I the Whitecaps of that Scrabble game? I won that game.
I didn't know that. Me and my friend had a sleepover. We were karaoke.
Oh yeah, we had a karaoke machine that weekend because we had a graduation party for Lucas, and we had rented a karaoke machine all weekend, and they were rocking out. What were the favorites?
Not telling you.
Yeah,
I'm not.
You don't tell the people.
I'm not. It's
I think this is a very wise move, Emmy, because as a fellow karaoke enthusiast, you don't want people to know which ones your tracks are, because then they'll put them in and they'll sing them and steal them from you. And if they don't know which tracks you like, they can't steal them from you. So I applaud your strategy. Good job.
Okay. Was it somebody who rhymes with Matey Gary?
No.
Yes.
No.
I love that you're giving her all the answers to the test, and it's like she's willfully
Right, I know.
going, nope.
This is
We
parenting.
We
You
did
also-
songs by somebody who rhymes with Matey Gary, but the rest of them weren't.
Yeah, you had one that rhymes with Boastland Observatory, which I was really surprised that you knew who they were.
I know who it is. Oh yeah, that song.
Yeah, the do.
Yeah, Addie chose that song.
Yeah, that's a good song.
I didn't know about it.
Yeah, now you do.
Yeah.
Now you're a fan.
No.
She refuses.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Emmy. Thanks for your contributions to the show.
I'm not done talking.
Okay. What do you want to lay on the people?
So like I know some stuff about the Whitecaps.
Yeah.
I remember like they're winning like a lot of past games.
Yep. They're doing good this season. They're first in
Like
the West. Cool. All right. Another successful week of camp. It was musical theater week. She was a character actor in a production of Alice in Wonderland, which was put together in a week. Fun.
That's theater camp. That's theater camp.
Spreading her wings. Yeah, she learned Canva. There's all kinds of things that she's been doing with camps that are an outgrowth of her school. So that's very exciting. Okay. Well, this has gone all over the place. If you come to the end of this that I have successfully edited, which was something that was maybe even a little bit more chaotic than what you are hearing now.
That is like the worst thing I've ever heard in the history of the 7 years that I've been on this planet.